Hello everyone and welcome to another CLO video. In this video, we are going to be learning how to do smocking in CLO. There are going to be two types of smocking that I will show you over here. We will have a basic smocking and then a smocking using the CLO tag tool. So let's get into it. So the first thing you need to do is load in the files, that is the pattern files that you will find. You can download them from the description of the YouTube video. And I have already loaded them in here in my library. So I'm just going to double click on the file here, that is the DXF file. And you'll get in this box that says import DXF. In this, you can keep the option load type as open, and you can set the settings according to them here. Now that we have all our patterns, we're going to go in and add in an avatar. So these patterns are for a woman. So we're going to add either of our female avatars. And I'm going to go ahead and add in Grace over here. So a simple double click and you'll see my avatar is added into my workspace. Now, one thing to notice is these patterns are white on the front and the back. So it is a little difficult in the 3D window to make out which is the right side of the fabric and the wrong side. So to adjust that, what we're going to do is we're going to go here in our toggle menu and we're going to select textured surface. Once we select that, you will see now when you rotate, the back side of your fabric, that is the wrong side of your fabric, is gray color. Once this is done, let's go ahead into sewing. Just a quick reminder that in CLO, I would always set my patterns in this manner with the back and front on either sides of the sleeve. And the other side of the patterns can be duplicated with the option of symmetric pattern. So now we're going to go ahead into the sewing. The first thing I'm going to do is sew the side seam parts, and I'm going to use the free sewing tool for this, as you can see. In this section, you will notice that both the segments are not equal, and this is because this part will be the smocked part, which is why you can see the few baselines on it as well. If I go ahead and use the edit sewing tool and delete the sewing and I go back into it again, you can see that there will be a blue dot telling me the end of the sewing, but for now we're going to do it till here because we have smocking. Go ahead and complete the other side seam. And once this is done, we're going to go now into the side seam of the sleeve. There we go. Now we have the front, these sections over here in the front. And here again, we have a slight sort of shirring happening. So there will be a little bit of a difference in the sewing lines as well. Going ahead and completing the back. And once this is done, we're going to move on to the shoulders. So in the shoulders, just remember you have to begin from one side and use that as a guide for the other. So here I'm beginning from the neck towards the shoulder, and the same thing over here. This will make sure my sewing lines aren't entangled. Now for the sleeve cap. So over here you have all of these notch points, and what I'm going to do is follow these notch points exactly. So you stop at the notch point, and when I'm going to the sleeve, you can see I have my blue dot available. Now I'm done with the front, and I'm going to do the same on the back. So starting from here, and I have the dark blue dot that tells me that my sewing line is complete. And there we go. Now we're going to go ahead and duplicate all of these patterns to the other side. So select all of them, right click, and you have the option symmetric pattern with sewing. Now I have my pattern and I'm just going to move the back to the other side. And once that's done, we have the center front and the center back. So using my segment sewing tool, just going ahead and quickly completing that. There we go. We have all the patterns sewn. Now let's go on to arranging the patterns in the 3D window. I'm going to increase the size of the 3D window, and to make sure the patterns resemble the 2D window, in the 3D window I'm going to select this option called Reset 2D Arrangement. And then I'm going to switch on the arrangement points over here. Once these arrangement points are switched on, you'll see I will be able to pick each and every pattern and arrange them. But to do that, first I'm pressing Ctrl and A, selecting all the patterns and moving them up with the gizmo tool. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the pattern from the 2D window, and you can see it'll automatically get selected in the 3D window, and I'm going to start arranging these patterns. Also note that since these patterns are symmetrical, whenever I select one pattern to arrange it, the other one will automatically get arranged on its side. So here I'm selecting the front, and you can see the shadow of two patterns, and when I click, you can see both of them are arranged. Just arranging all the front patterns. And once this is done, I'm pressing the number key 8 to get the back view and going ahead and arranging all the back patterns. Over here you can see that since these patterns are quite large, they are overlapping each other a lot. And to avoid the overlapping that will happen or the collision that will happen during simulation, I'm selecting these patterns, and in the property editor, I'm going to change the way the arrangement has been set. So over here, you can see there is position X, Y, and offset. So I'm going to change the position X, and you can see how the pattern changes in the 3D window. And I'm going to change the offset as well. In this way, you can see the patterns are at a safe distance from each other, and this will make my simulation a lot faster and easier. Now we're going to go ahead and arrange the rest of the patterns. Again, I'm changing the offset so they sit correctly. Once this is done, I have the sleeve pattern that needs to be arranged. That also will be replicated on the other side as they're symmetrical. Once I have all the patterns arranged, we can go ahead and simulate. And there we have the basic garment completed. So now let's go on to actually doing the smocking part of the garment. So before that, I can see there is a seam here on the center front, and I'm going to take off that seam. And to do so, we have a very easy option. I'm using the edit pattern tool, and I'm right clicking on this line here. You can also see that since they're symmetrical, when I select one line, the other gets selected as well. And I'm going to right click and choose the option merge. As soon as I choose the option merge, you'll see that this section that was two patterns will now be one single pattern. Although these patterns are merged, even so, if I try to move the point of this side, the other side will move as well. So this will make sure any changes you make to one side will happen to the other. I'm going to go ahead and merge the other center fronts as well. And then let's go ahead and do it to the back patterns as well. Okay, once we have all the patterns merged, I'm going to switch on simulation again, and you will be able to see that now there are no seams on the center front or the center back. You can also see that the position of my avatar has the hands in an A pose, and I'm going to go ahead and change that pose over here in the pose file. Just double click and you'll get that option and you can click OK. Once this is done, you can see the avatar's hands are down, and I'm going to choose the top view and just adjust the shoulder of this garment. I'm simply clicking and keeping left click pressed and dragging in to adjust that. Now that you can see this garment, I want you to pay attention to the hem and the neckline. You can see that there is a binding over there. We are going to create this binding in our project file right now. So to do that, we have the binding tool in the 3D window over here. I'm just going to select it, and with left clicks, you create the binding and you double click to end it. You can see this binding goes around the entire neckline, and I'm simulating so that the binding is adjusted. I'm going to do this for the hem of the sleeve as well. And in case you feel the hand of the avatar is coming in your way, you can temporarily hide your avatar and complete the binding. Also completed for the hem of the garment, and I'm going to simulate it once more just so all the binding is completely settled. In case you want to edit the binding, you also have the edit binding tool. So Control A and select all the bindings, and here in the property editor you have the option of type, so you can set the binding to sit over or under the pattern piece. Once this is done, you can go ahead and change the width, or you can also change other details as you can see them in the property editor over here. So now that we have all the bindings shown exactly how we need them to, we're going to go on to the smocking. Over here, you can see we've done two types of smockings. The one on the back is a tack tool smocking, and the one here on the sleeve is a smocking that we're going to use with elastics. So here on the back, as you can pay attention, we are going to use our tack tool in Clo to create this exact type of smocking. So over here in our 3D window, you can see the back pattern, and here you can also see the baselines that are available here, and we're going to use this as a guide for our tacking. In the 3D window, you will find the tack tool over here. So I'm selecting that tool. And using these baselines as a guide, you're going to use the tack tool here. So you click once to start at the top of the baseline, and you click to end. I'm going to do the same here and complete this line vertically. The process that you follow is just to click once at the start of the line and then end the tack at the end. Once this is done, you will see the tacks look something like this in the 3D window. And to give you an idea of what the tacking tool exactly does, I'm going to give you an example here on the sleeve. So I'm tacking it once on the top and then here at the bottom. And when I simulate, you can see it'll bring both the ends of the tacking line that I've created together. To delete it, you just need to use the Edit Tack tool, select the line from the 2D window or 3D window and press Delete. Right click and press Delete. I'm also now going to change the fabric of my garment. So I'm using the cotton stretch velvet that is available in our Clo fabric library. And I'm going to change the color, and you can change the color to whichever color you feel is appropriate. We also have Pantone integrated. So I'm going to select a lighter color. And I'm also changing the particle distance of this pattern piece where I'm creating the smocking on to 5, which is what it would be when it is a high resolution garment. Once this is done, I'm going to go ahead with the second part of the tacking, but as you can see, I cannot see my pattern piece and baselines clearly. So I'm using monochrome surface in the 2D window from the toggle menu to be able to see it clearly. Now the same process that I did for the first set of lines I'm doing here. In case you click wrong over here, as you can see I have done, you can use the edit tag tool to go ahead and adjust it to the right position. Okay, once I have completed this line of tags, all I need to do is replicate it. So I'm using the edit tag tool and selecting all of them together. Then simply zoom into either one of them, right click and copy. And again right click and paste. Although before I go ahead and left click, instead of left click, I'm going to right click. And when I do so, I will get a pop-up box over here. You can see it will show me the interval and also the number of copies that I want to create. So I'm just increasing the number of copies to fit along that pattern piece. Once it's done, you'll see you have all your tags done except for this last row, which I'm going to go ahead and do manually. There we go. Once this is done, we are going to replicate that obviously to the other side of the fabric. So again, simple click with the edit tag tool. So select all of them, right click copy and right click paste. Once this is done, and you have all your tags available, I'm switching on my simulation. And you can see you have a tag tool created smocking available on this back pattern. Once it has simulated correctly, you can go ahead and switch off simulation. Now we're going to go ahead to create the smocking along the sleeves. To do so, I'm first selecting both the sleeve patterns and changing the particle distance to 5. Once this is done, I'm going to go ahead and simulate and let these two sleeve patterns settle down a little bit more. Once this is done, you can see the smocking along the sleeve pattern. And we are going to be using the elastic here as mentioned before, so our elastic tool. To create that type of smocking, I'm going to first convert these baselines to internal lines. So I'm using the trace tool, and while keeping shift pressed, I'm selecting all of them. To convert them to internal lines, I'm going to press enter on my keyboard. Once this is done, you can see they have turned red in color, which means they are internal lines now. Now I'm going to apply elastic to these lines. So keeping shift pressed, I'm selecting all of these internal lines. And here in the property editor, you'll see there will be an option for elastic, and I'm going to switch this on. You can also see the other values, and I'm going to go ahead and change the ratio to 55 to create the smocking type that I want. Once this is done, I'm going ahead and simulating, and you'll see how the elastic will look on the sleeves now. I'm just pulling out the sleeve a little bit. You can also zoom into the pattern to see if the smocking looks exactly as you want it to. Here I can see 55 is not exactly correct, so I'm going to select the internal lines and change it to 60 to get the look that I want. Here I can see the smocking and the wrinkles aren't expressed as much as I want them to. So I'm going to select both the sleeve patterns and I'm changing the particle distance this time to 3. Once this is done and I simulate, you can see it is looking a little bit more like smocking. And you can keep changing the particle distance and the elastic to get the exact type of look for the smocking that you want. Now we're going to go on to enhancing the quality of the garment, and to do so I'm selecting all the patterns that we did not change the particle distance for, and from 20 and the other values I'm going to change them to 5. Once this is done, go ahead and give it some time to simulate. Now you can switch off simulation and just have a look around the garment to see if there's any part of the smocking that you need to adjust. To further enhance the garment, I'm going to use this option, that is a high-res option, and go ahead and make the entire garment into a high-resolution garment. Once this is done, you need to simulate it again. If at first when your simulation is on, you don't see any change in the garment, give it a minute. Since we have multiple different particle distances, flow will take a little bit of time. You'll see the quality of the garment getting better and better. And once you're happy with it, you can go ahead and switch off simulation. And there we have our smocking completed. In this video, we learned how to create smocking with our tack tool as well as with creating internal lines and adding an elastic. Hope you all enjoyed this video.